Jaya Ram. Jai.
Anantagoti Vaishnava ki
Jai.
Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki
Jai.
Friends of the Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Shantam Radha Kund Giri Gopinath ki
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham ki
Jai.
Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki
Jai.
Ganga Mai ki
Jai.
Yamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi ki
Jai.
Tulsi Maharani ki
Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
O Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Continuing the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 4, Chapter 12, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. We will read text 27. Sorry,
26.
4, 12, 26. Anashtitam
Anastitam
te
te
pitribhi
pitribhi
anyai
anyai
api
api
anga
anga
karichet
karichit
atishta
atishta
jagatam
jagatam
vandyam
vandyam
tat
tad
Vishnu
paramam
padam
padam
anastitam te pitribhi
anastitam te pitribhi
anashtitam te pitribhi
anasitam te pitribhi
anyayapyanga karichet
anyarapi anga karichit
anyayapyanga karichet
anyarapi anga karichit
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
anashtitam te pitribhi anyayapyanga karichet
anyarapi anga karichit
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
anashtitam te pitribhi
anasitam te pitribhi
anyayapyanga karichet
anyarapi anga karichit
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam anastitam te pitribhi anyarapi anga karhichit atishta jagatam vandyam tad Vishnu paramam padam
Anatishtam te pitribhi
anastitam te pitribhi
anyayapyanga karichet
anyarapi anga karichit
atishta jagatam vandyam
atishta jagatam vandyam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
tad Vishnu paramam padam
Anashtitam te pitribhi
Anasitam de pitribhi Anyarapyangakarichi Adishta Jagatam Banyam Tadvishnu Paramam Padam Anashritam
never achieved.
Never achieved.
Te yo Pitribhi by forefathers. Anyay by others. Api even. Anga O Dhruva Karichit at any time. Adishta please come and live there. Jagatam by the inhabitants of the universe. Vandyam worshipable. Tat that Vishnu of Lord Vishnu. Paramam supreme. Padam situation. Translation. Dear King Dhruva, neither your forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet known as Vishnu Loka, where Lord Vishnu personally resides, is the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj went to perform austerities, he was very determined to achieve a post never dreamed of by his forefathers. His father was Damodar, his grandfather was Manu, and his great-grandfather was Lord Brahma. So Dhruva wanted a kingdom even greater than Lord Brahma could achieve, and he requested Narad Muni to give him facility for achieving it. The associates of Lord Vishnu reminded him that not only his forefathers, but everyone else before him was unable to attain Vishnu Loka, the planet where Lord Vishnu resides. This is because everyone within this material world is either a karmi, a jnani, or a yogi, but there are hardly any pure devotees. The transcendental planet known as Vishnu Loka is especially meant for devotees, not for karmis, jnanis, or yogis. Great rishis or demigods can hardly approach Brahmaloka, and as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmaloka is not a permanent residence. Lord Brahma's duration of life is so long that it is difficult to estimate even the duration of one day in his life. And yet Lord Brahma also dies, as do the residents of his planet. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 16, it is said, Brahma Purana Loka Punarabhati Narjuna. Except for those who go to Vishnu Loka, everyone is subjected to the four principles of material life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. The Lord says, Yat tat vahana nivardante tat dhamma paramam mama. The planet from which, once going, no one returns is my Supreme Lord. Bhagavad Gita 15:6. Dhruva Maharaj was reminded, you are going in our company to that planet from which no one returns to this material world. Material scientists are attempting to go to the moon and other planets, but they cannot imagine going to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, for it is beyond their imagination. By material calculation, traveling at the speed of light would take 40,000 light years to reach the topmost planet. I By mechanical processes, we are unable to reach the topmost planet of this universe. But by the process called Bhakti Yoga, as executed by Maharaj Dhruva, but the process called Bhakti Yoga, as executed by Maharaj Dhruva, can give one the facility not only to reach other planets within this universe, but also to reach beyond this universe, to the Vishnu planets. We have outlined this in our small booklet, Easy Journey to Other Planets. Om Jnanati Ramdasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Veditam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Devam Uttara Swam Rupapadamaya Jadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juda Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Savadana Raghunatha Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Savadana Bhavita Shri Vishakam Vitamasta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Upesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishnukhana Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalatadurvestra Kripa Sindhurvyare Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharya Vishesha Shrivani Paschatya Veshakamini Srila Prabhupada Ki Anashritam Tepekri Niranya Apyankakari Chita Krishna Jagatam Vandyam Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam. Dear King Rupa, neither the forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet known as Vishnu Loka, where Lord Vishnu personally resides as the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all the planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. Dhruva here is the envy of all persons. He is being offered such a cordial, warm invitation to come and reside in the best of places. What would any of us do to have such an invitation from these transcendental personalities under these personal associates of Lord Krishna? Of course, everyone in this material realm, being materially conditioned, is always yearning for a better condition. That's what it means to be conditioned. We are conditioned by the laws of material nature. We are bound by its laws, by stringent laws, and thus we are conditioned to act in certain ways and identify ourselves in certain ways, based on the body, based on the mind, based on relationships, based on society, based on so many factors that formulate how we identify ourselves. And in some way, all of us can testify that we are oftentimes, or in some ways, never satisfied with our current identity. We always want to improve our identity, which is really based on our condition. And therefore we are always yearning to improve our condition. To improve our condition. To create a better condition than what we currently have. And this can be likened to the foolishness of a prisoner who is thinking that let me get a better prison cell. Let me get better cellmates to live with. Let me try and get a prison cell that has running water, has an attached bathroom. Let me get a prison cell that has a view to the outside world. Or you get some high-level political prisoners today. They get a little garden even. Let me get a prison cell, a prison situation that has nice food, that has nice ministers, so many things. Better than what they currently have. And they try to do all sorts of things. They try to endeavor by getting some influence over other prisoners, over the guards. They start to bribe. Or they may even just try to be a very good prisoner, right? A model prisoner, so that they will get the eligibility to have a better condition in the same prison. But the foolishness of this endeavor is that they are in the prison. Whether one is in the general population of the prison with all the worst criminals, or one is in a very nice fancy cell, one is in a prison. The general condition of one's existence is that one is a prisoner. No matter what one does to improve one's condition, one is a prisoner. And sometimes we find even when one is a prisoner, there's a psychological sort of condition one develops after spending so long in the prison that it's determined, that it's found that sometimes, or very often times, these prisoners, they do not even want to leave the prison because they do not know how to survive out there. They do not know how to engage out of the prison. That they'd rather stay in the prison. And many long-time prisoners, when they are released and given parole, you find that they commit suicide very soon afterwards because they just cannot take that situation. So similarly, we find even in our literature, we find the story of persons who were once very highly situated, like Lord Indra, the king of heaven, and due to some mischief of his, he was cursed to take birth as a hog, a pig. And he lived like that for a number of years. He even developed a family, a wife pig and children pigs, piglets, wallowing in mud, eating stew. A very exciting life when you're in that condition. But the universal affairs were needing attention after some time, and for the chief administrator, the king of heaven, was required. And Lord Brahma came back down to where he was, to where Indra was, to request him, okay, stop this life and come back now. Your curse will be lifted. What was Indra's response? No, I'm happy where I am. I'm happy where I am. Yes, even a child can understand how foolish it is. It's so stupid. Wallowing in mud, eating stew. Doesn't make sense. People become so conditioned, so many layers of misidentification with everything related to the body, based on the identification that I am the body. So, to get an invitation from personalities like Nanda and Sananda, well, here we find it's the first time it happened. They are telling Dhruva, this has never happened to anyone before. No one has attained this. So this is happening in Satya Yuga, you can understand, this pastime. So it's never happened before. Not even Uttanapad had this invitation, not even Swayambhuva Manu, not even Brahma. Lord Brahma had this invitation to come and reside in the Vishnu Loka. But Dhruva's eligibility, of course, was proven from the time he was born. By the strength of his devotional practices, his austere practices in bhakti, guaranteed him the Lord's mercy and the Lord's assurance that at the end of that life, he would go back to him, back to Vishnu Loka. However, if one is very, very materially conditioned, even if they are given the opportunity to come, invited the way Dhruva was, because one is not properly attuned in one's consciousness to understand their identification, their true identity, it's very likely that they may refuse the invitation. Shri Radha Radha
Jai.
They may actually refuse it. It can very well happen. It can very, very well happen. Many times, in our preaching, we invite people, come and live with us. Come and experience the spiritual world. How many people are doing that? How many people? Very few. Very few people are doing it. They'd rather toil out there in the rat race for 10 hours a day at the office, 1 hour to work, 1 hour back. Of course, the traffic not even more. So many bills to pay, so many home loans to pay. I was watching a little YouTube short video, 40 seconds. A young man, maybe like a young teenager, maybe 12 or 13, talking about the fallacy, the conspiracy, the fallacy of this world, that people are indoctrinated to work so hard for 40 years to acquire money for one's retirement where they can only enjoy for 5 to 10 years. And this boy is making the point, where is the intelligence in this? Where is the intelligence? Why would anyone want to work so hard for all those years just to retire for 5 years of what's left of your life to enjoy what you've collected? And then to validate their experience of not wanting to be in the spiritual world, all sorts of reasonings come up, based on the material mind, the material intelligence. All sorts of reasons and validation will be there. But no, the open invitation is there for everyone, just like what is being given to Dhruva. But in order to align our minds to accept such an amazing invitation, one's mind, one's consciousness has to be purified. It has to be purified. That is the only way. Just like Dhruva's mind was purified. We find here Dhruva being invited to the ultimate destination, a destination where all the facilities are so transcendental. One can judge or measure the quality of a place based on the facilities one will live in, right? If you go to a hotel or to some accommodation you're not usually going to, it's not good. What's the first thing you worry about in devotees? This is a common thing for all devotees. What's the condition of the bathroom? Everybody worries about that, right? And better have an attached bathroom, right? It's considered very, very in a higher level, right? You worry about cleanliness, we worry about the security, we worry about the gardens, we worry about the community around, the air quality, the noise quality, whether there's pets or no pets, what's the vegetation like. We worry about all these things and we base the quality of our living, of that accommodation according to these externals. Isn't it? That's how we and are there squatters nearby? What's the integrity of the structure? Is it well built? What's the water quality like? Are we getting borehole water that's not filtered? Every now and then we have to be reminded that we can't drink it. What's the quality of the electricity supply? Does it go off and on? Is there electricity? We're worried about all these things. Right? Then we can judge, yes, this is a first class place to live in. This is a first class place to live in. But here Prabhupada is saying, he's quoting from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, what is that? Natha Bhashayate Surya. Text 6. Yes. Natha Bhashayate Surya Nashashanko Napavaka Yadharma Nivarnante Tadhama Paramama. What is the nature of this place that Dhruva is being invited to, that we are all being invited to go and live? That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon. It is self-effulgent. Nor by fire or electricity. There's no need to worry about these things. There's constant supply of transcendental energy. And what to speak of these external things? The quality of the people around there are pure. They have no ulterior motive except to serve you and to serve Krishna. There's no crime. There is no decay of any sort in this abode. Why wouldn't anyone want to go there? Everyone today, let's face it, you open up the newspaper, everyone is just full of complaints and anxieties about the standard of living that we are in. The standard of living. And we are always thinking, Chatsworth, gosh, everyone's asking us, what are we going to do with the temple? The Swarup camp is coming up just down there. This place is just going down and down. Let's find a new place where we can. People ask that, can we move the temple some other place? They've asked that. It's like a serious consideration. Even now, when you see these leaders, when they're considering to open a temple, they always consider so many things, the safety factor, the quality factor, the type of people. They're always thinking materially, all these things. But here we are being invited to the best of abodes, where there's no issues, no crime, no disease. There are no hospitals in this area. That's another thing people look for, hospitals. Need good hospitals nearby. But there in that place, Vishnu Loka, there is no hospitals because there is no need for it. No need for it. There's no pharmacies. Actually, there may be a pharmacy. The only thing that they prescribe in that pharmacy or whatever, the only prescription they fulfill in that pharmacy is Charanamrita and Mahakrishna. That's the only thing they give. So that's the only thing that's needed. It's the only thing that's needed. No hospitals, no pharmacies, no plastic surgeons there because no one is growing old, no one's getting wrinkled. Right? No dietitians that are required to work on your diet and your cholesterol. It's not needed at all. Not needed at all. So this is the place. Another thing, one may wonder then, gosh, if I go to this place, how much is it going to cost me to pay the levies, the mortgage, the monthly payments? How much will I have to work for? How long will I have to work to be able to afford such an abode? It sounds very nice, sounds very wonderful, but I think it's far beyond my level. So if one goes there, let's start with that. One goes there. What is Krishna showing here in Bhagavad Gita? Yad karma na nivarnate tadhama paramama. Once having gone there, you will never be ejected for failure to pay your rent. It will never happen. You are protected. Like South Africa today, in many places of the world, they have renters protection laws. If somebody can't pay the rent, the law protects them. That you can't just evict your tenant out immediately. You have to go through the whole process. So there's some protection, but it's not full protection. But in the spiritual world, no one can evict you. No one, because once you've gone there, it shows you must have had enough qualification to get there. And that qualification means you are there to stay. So there's never any anxiety. That's why it's called Vaikuntha. One of the main anxieties about attaining to a higher condition of life, or to getting a lot of money, or followers, or prestige, the main anxiety those persons have is that they're going to lose it. It's the greatest anxiety. But in the spiritual world, it's Vaikuntha. There is no anxiety, especially this main anxiety, that one will lose that position. It will never happen. It will never happen whatsoever. Here Prabhupada is also speaking in the purport about the attempts to go to the higher planetary system. We find out during the time of Prabhupada writing this and just before, so much of expenditure, so much of intense endeavor was done by different countries, especially America and Russia at that time, the USSR, to put a man on the moon. They call it the moon shot. The moon shot. To get a man on the moon, the space race. Russia, of course, or they think, they won the first space race by putting the first man into space. What was his name? Mr. Gagarin. In the Sputnik. He went into the shuttle and he went, I don't know if he went around the planet. I think he did go around the planet. But who won the race to the moon? Was America. They put the first man on the moon. But after so many billions of dollars expenditure to get a person on the moon. And how soon after that did they go again? A long time after. And then recently, a few weeks or months ago, who also joined the whole program?
India.
Jai Hind! Any loyalists here? Jai Hind. India. But what was the space shuttle called?
Chandrayaan.
Chandrayaan. Yes, somebody was up to date with the Indian program. The Chandrayaan. They put. But for what purpose? So much of expenditure. So much of media coverage. So much of this. Whereas all those billions, thousands of crores of rupees, in the case of India, if it was used in the preaching mission of Bhakti Yoga, wouldn't have just sent 5 or 6 astronauts to the moon, could have sent thousands and thousands of persons, not to the moon, not to Tapaloka, Janaloka, Mahaloka, Sanjaloka, but to Vishnaloka. Look at the wastage of endeavor and money. Doesn't make sense. Because here, the simple process of Bhakti Yoga is all that's required. Not to go, not to waste your time on going to the moon, or the sun, or this planet, or that planet. Bhuvaloka, Swarup, like that. It doesn't matter, but one can go ultimately to the topmost planet. Prabhupada is saying, so much of endeavor just to go to the moon. They do not even have the imagination, they cannot even conceive of going to Brahmaloka. That's beyond even their conception. And even mechanically, it will be completely beyond them. Completely beyond them to go to that planet where Lord Brahma resides. And they're so fascinated, so proud of themselves for having gone to the moon. But that same endeavor, a fraction of that endeavor, materially speaking, if applied in Bhakti Yoga, supersedes all their accolades, all the results that they have accrued of going to the moon. So here Dhruva is being invited by dint of his qualifications in Bhakti to be immediately transferred to Vishnaloka. And this is something we should very carefully understand. Dhruva Maharaj, yes, he was designed initially in a material sense, working very hard. In some ways, working against the material energy. Against the spiritual energy. Trying to get the results of his desires. But when one thinks, if there's a fast-flowing river, what's the easiest way to get from one point to the other? Just swim with the current. If you want to swim against the current, it's going to be very, very difficult. So the materialists, the karmis, the yogis, the jnanis, to try and get a better condition, a higher they are swimming against the spiritual current. Therefore, it is very, very difficult. So much of endeavor. I mean, just to even become slightly less than immortal, like Ravan and who was before him? Hiranyakashipu. How much of an endeavor they had to undertake. Hiranyakashipu's austerities are well documented. He was eaten away up until the point of just being skeleton. Just a skeletal body. And his life is where? Being maintained there. So much of difficulty. So much. Even then, not immortal. But if he only put aside his pride and his desire to lord it over the material nature, just like that, he would have gone. Even Ravana, Lord Ram's mercy is also shown even to someone like Ravana. He said, even if Ravana, after all his offenses, killing Jatayu, kidnapping my wife, killing so many Brahmins by his order and his arrangement, if he comes and surrenders to me, I will forgive him. I will forgive him. That's all has to be. But because of the pride of the living entity being so conditioned, wanting to lord it over, they will never ever accept it. They will never accept it. So to accept such a situation that Dhruva had before him, such an invitation, one has to give up pride and ego. He came with a lot of pride and ego at the start of the story, Dhruva, full of this Kshatriya bhav, so to speak, this determination. Dhruva means he was living up to his name in a materialistic sense. But when he gave it up, when he gave up the mood of lording it over, then everything came to him. When he gave up the mood that everything has to be within my control, the way I want it, everybody has to act in the way that I expect. Once we have that mood, we will never be peaceful. We will never be peaceful. Why won't we be peaceful? Because we are not following 529. What is 529? Prabhupada calls it the peace formula. Bhaktanam Yadata Prasad. Who is the beneficiary of all these offerings and all these jagnas? Who? Is it me? When I do austerities and penances, I am thinking that I am to be the recipient of the results of this, right? I want to better my situation. That's when we are never peaceful. Sarva Loka Maheshwara, who is the Lord of all the planetary systems? I am thinking it's me. As long as we think it's me, that I want to attain this, I want to attain that, that's Ravan-like mentality, Hiranyakashipu-like mentality. Never be peaceful. Never ever be peaceful. But when one understands and gives up that need to control everything around you, control people around you, then only will one be peaceful. Otherwise, peace will never descend on such a person. Yakamam Shantim Richard. You have to know this. Have to know this. Have to know this. His Grace Gurija Prabhu says, I say this often, in the conditioned world, everyone is walking around as if they have an announcement to make. And they stand up on their pedestal in some way, and they say, everyone attention, I have a very important announcement for you all to take note of. I want you all to know that I am the center of the universe and all of you here exist to serve me and facilitate me. This is the nature of the condition. Now we may laugh at that. It's true, we may laugh at that. Because it's stupid, it's foolish. But if one looks deeply and subtly into one's own consciousness, you may find the elements of the same thing. In our expectations of each other, expectations of how things are meant to be aligned around us. Why isn't this being done according to my standard? Why aren't people following my arrangements? Why can't they just listen to me like that? But Krishna is in control. Krishna is in control. Once we understand that Krishna is in control and allow His control in our lives, just like we should allow Bhakti Yoga means to preach to people out there. Preaching Bhakti to people out there means to guide them to accept Krishna's supremacy in their lives, to accept Krishna's control in their lives, and to give up control. To give up control. This is the meaning of surrender, sharanagati. To accept Krishna's position in that way. To accept Krishna's. And once we accept that, we will look back in time and laugh at all the things that we were so attached to, trying to be in so much of control of, and the endeavors we made to keep control. We do that sometimes. We make so many arrangements to keep control, but it's such a futile endeavor. Because either you will be baffled by someone's greater intelligence to wrest control from you, or you'll be baffled by disease and old age where you have to give up control. As you get older, you'll realize, gosh, 20 years ago I could memorize this, I could remember this, I had like the strength of intelligence and sharpness and wit, and I could make arrangements. Now you're getting older, it's like I'm so much slower at this. So difficult. Old age is actually, although we're always here from His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, old age is not for sissies, he says, right? But it's also a blessing in disguise. If one cares to get the message, give up control. Give it up. We're holding on so hard to control of everything. Give it up, and then one will be peaceful. That doesn't mean now one must just shirk everything. No. But give up control of the outcome. This is what's required. Give up the control of the outcome. And when we do like that, then one day we will wake up and Nanda and Sunanda will be there. Come, chalo, let's go. Back to Goloka, back to Vrindavan. This is what we should pray for, this is what we should hope for, and this is how we should practice. We should practice in that regard. Prabhupada at the end says, we have outlined this in our small booklet, Easy Journey to Other Planets. How many of you have read that book? This was the first book I read. It's a very, very interesting book. It starts off with, it's basically 2 chapters, if I can remember correctly. One is about material and anti-material worlds. And Prabhupada very expertly speaks about, if we have a material world, well, he's talking about some paper, I can't remember, some Nobel laureate or somebody who wrote a paper, which really didn't make any sense, wasn't logically founded. That he says that just as we have a material world, there's an anti-material world whose qualities are completely opposite to that of the material world. And in these two worlds, the material and the anti-material worlds collide, there will be devastation and both will be destroyed. So Prabhupada immediately just dismantles that whole stupid argument. Because if the anti-material world exists, that means it doesn't have the qualities of the material world. What's one of the qualities of the material world? It will be destroyed. So anti-material world means it can't be destroyed. So just like that, Prabhupada dismantles these mundane scientists' arguments. And in the next chapter, Prabhupada speaks about the different planetary systems and traversing through these planetary systems. So through yoga, through normal yoga, meditation and yoga, one can transfer oneself to the moon planet, to the sun planet, to all sorts of planets. It can be done. But only through bhakti yoga can one be transferred beyond all these material planets. Because to go past the material planets, through past this universe, it's described that outside or at the edge of this Brahmanda, this universe, there's how many? 7 layers, 8 layers of substances. Each one 10 times thicker than the first one. So outside this universe, there's, I don't know how thick, how many yojanas it is, of earth. Then 10 times that distance, there's water. Then 10 times the water is fire, then air, then ether, like that. It's so thick. Material scientists haven't got an instrument, haven't even dreamt of a vehicle that could go through that type of situation, that could ride through fire, millions of miles of fire. So, no matter what type of mechanical process, yogic process one undertakes, one can never transform oneself to the planet of Lord Vishnu. Only through the simple process of bhakti. And to accept that it is so simple, that is the difficult part. That is the difficult part. Maharaj was saying in class the other day, where was he saying? He was saying it in his Vyasa Puja address. The Prabhupada would often say that Bhakti Yoga is so simple that one may miss it. So that therein lies the difficulty. That's why Bhakti to some people is so difficult. Because it cannot be that simple. It's too good to be true. It's too good to be true according to them. Therefore it's so difficult. But for those who just give up that mood of control and embrace Krishna in their lives, they will appreciate how simple it really is. Alright, we will stop here. Are there any comments or questions? Alright. Let's try such a
Thank you. Generally, we are kind of conditioned to think the material world in that philosophy of being optimistic. And that although we see so many upheavals, tribulations, all this suffering, and we think, yeah, there's something better. Somewhere there's something better, and we even leave our faith in another place. But we follow Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is saying, Brahma, Bhuvanadokara. Everything from Brahma down to the lowest places of suffering, temporary, miserable. But we don't take heed of that. And then Prabhupada, I try to figure when I saw this stuff about Bhagavad Gita, he says, unless we see the world from a pessimistic point of view, the desire to live it will never be there. Stop me by it's there in Bhagavad Gita. And she said,
yeah, that's a very good point. One must develop a healthy pessimism. One mustn't develop a fatalistic type of pessimism. One mustn't be like that. One must have a healthy pessimistic view of the material world. Because ultimately nothing is material. Of course, we're going to get into it. They are all energies of Krishna. Everything's an energy of Krishna. And so like even the material world, one can utilize it in Krishna's service. According to one's capacity and capability. One cannot say, anyway, one mustn't engage in material nature beyond one's capacity, beyond one's capabilities and qualifications. But if one doesn't have a healthy pessimism of the material world, it's true, the desire, the proper desire to leave this world won't manifest. That's true. That's very true. Because we'll find, even in our attempts to engage everything in Krishna's service, we will find there are so many limitations. A devotee will find, they won't give up, but they'll find frustration here and there in trying to engage in this way. In fact, even establishing for Prabhupada, one can imagine to establish a spiritual institution in the material world. How difficult was that for him? We are seeing now how difficult it is. And we have small projects, small little things that we have to deal with. So difficult. And we're trying our best to engage anything material that comes away in Krishna's service, but we find so many limitations. So much of anxiety, so many challenges. But we can pray that once we go to the spiritual world, I don't think there's a need for the GBC and the temple president. This is not there. There's not going to be a need for that. No facilities management. No food for life in the kitchen to be quiet there. Nothing. Every house will have a Akshaya Patra. Just cook and feed. It's different. So we should work hard to engage what we can here, but at the same time know that it's going to be fraught with difficulties. We tolerate it with the hope of going back to Krishna. And when one becomes so advanced that there is no question of tolerating in the material world, there's not a point, because like Prabhupada, he was once, I love this story and I hate this story simultaneously. Swarup Damodar, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he was a brahmachari then, and Prabhupada put him in charge of the Bhagavatam Institute, that scientific wing. And Prabhupada was very, very proud of Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and he considered the Bhagavatam Institute to be one of the most, if not the most important wing of ISKCON. Very, very important. So he put a lot of effort in that. And Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj once came to Prabhupada after some years and said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm having so many difficulties in BI, managing it, so many problems are there. It's so difficult. And then I think about you, I'm just running one department, but you are running the whole of ISKCON. How many problems there must be that you have to deal with? And what was Srila Prabhupada's transcendental response? Problems? What problems? I don't see any problems. All I see is service to my Guru Maharaj. So, like I said, I love that story, but I hate that story at the same time. But it forces us to raise our consciousness, to raise our level of surrender, and see everything as an opportunity to please the spiritual master. Alright, Rakharashana Bhagavatam Ki, Question Bhagavatam Ki, Jai, the late question Ki. Say it again.
No, you mentioned that, okay, we don't have this nature of control. But as a leader, as a Guna administrator, a Kshatriya is always to have some control. This is good, it's not a Brahmana.
Kshatriya means what? What does the root, what does it mean come from? To
protect.
To protect. So control must be on the basis of wanting to protect, not our interests, but the interests of those that we are controlling. As long as we don't have that culture, then that tendency to control will be our downfall. If my controlling, even in the context of running a temple, a project in Krishna consciousness, or anything, if my mood is, let me be a controller so that I am getting lauded, I am getting appreciated, my interests are protected, then that is mundane control.
Yeah.
But if one controls for the purpose of benefiting those under one's care, then that is proper, that is beautiful. So that level of control. Once I had a well, it started off with a very traumatic exchange with His Holiness Krishna Maharaj for me. He chastised the life out of me on a level that I've never been chastised before and since. Like really, really intense. But later in the evening he spoke to me. He just asked me to excuse him. And he said, I'm just such a big controller, he told me. I'm such a controller. And he said something very interesting after that Prabhupada recognized my tendency to control and he engaged it in Krishna's service. Because that was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. If you read stories about him, it's frightening because of his heavy ability to control. But one thing, all the devotees who knew him really well can testify that he never controlled out of sense gratification. It was all for the sake of the mission and those devotees under him. So that's why Prabhupada kept him so close, because he had that ability to control,